All right, hey guys. Hopefully you can hear Jason, Mr. Sasso. Thanks for jumping in here. I really appreciate it very much. So I've got something that's going to be, I think, a really cool thing tonight. So sorry about that. Got the little dog in the background barking. Hang on one second. All right, let's try that again. All right. We've got nicely enough for Mr. Sasso to hop into the live chat tonight. So he's going to be kind of assisting with any information that I maybe miss, and just to kind of help provide some additional information based on this whiskey. Early on, I was kind of just doing some research and kind of came across them, and the process and everything was very interesting from the standpoint of this is a little bit of an unconventional style whiskey. It's something that I've never really heard or kind of dealt with or seen before. So I wanted him to kind of hop on here and just maybe help better explain what his product is. So in doing a little bit of research and talking with Mr. Sasso, we kind of agreed to do this and do a live rather than just me do a general review, because I thought this was something that may need just some additional kind of explanation for things. I guess based on the information that I have, so I'm just going to hold the bottle up real quick. So this is essentially what the bottle looks like. So let's see if I can get that to focus a little better. So you can see, so there's some information, and again, before I post everything, I'll have some links in the description below, just so that you can go and check out his product more, read up a little bit more on that. So I wanted this to be something where, he can provide some information, I can do kind of a general review, so to speak, and try to just make people aware of this product. So prior to tonight, I have tried it, I've sampled it, and I was basically blown away by what this really is. So I'll kind of get into this a little bit. And then I'll get into the chat and we can kind of do a little bit more. But what I wanted to do was just kind of give a brief description of essentially what I believe it is. And again, Mr. Sasso, he can jump in if I miss something or I say something wrong, he can kind of correct me. So I wanted to make sure of that. So this is Austonian Whiskey Company. Lawrence Sasso is the owner, producer, all of that of the company. This is basically from what I gathered, a sourced whiskey, and I'm going to call it eventually or essentially a white dog. He was nice enough to provide the mash bill. Hopefully you're okay with me giving this. And I guess let me know if there's something you don't want me to say, then let me know. But I'll kind of just go over some of these things based on the information I was able to come up with. So this mash bill on this whiskey, okay, good. The mash bill on this is 88% corn, 10% rye, and 2% malted barley. And essentially, from the information that I gathered, this is essentially going to be like a white dog that they then take through their process, and he can better describe or kind of explain as much as he can. There are some proprietary things that they've got that they're not going to disclose in terms of the process and all of that. But again, 88% corn, 10% rye, and 2% malted barley. So, and it is based on, like he just said, it's a blending of two distillates in a white dog that essentially is going to be then aged in The only thing I can imagine would have been some type of like large, either metal type of containers that have the aging process through some of the wood, toasted oak that's then kind of blended together, aged for a period of time to create this product. There was some information that he had sent that or for it to essentially be considered a whiskey, at some point it has to be housed in a charred oak barrel. It doesn't have to be new or anything like that. He's not claiming that this is a bourbon by any means, but it is by definition gonna still be considered a whiskey. So it was a cool process in trying some of it, and we'll get into that as we kind of go along a little bit more. But it was a real kind of interesting process where this is very unconventional from the standpoint that this is not where you produce a distillate, a white dog, let's call it, and then begin the aging process in a either new charred oak barrel or a used or reclaimed charred oak barrel. This is taken basically the white dog, and I'm going to say putting it into, let's just call it a large metal container, where now it begins to go through this process that they've got where they introduce toasted oak, things along those lines to create this whiskey. So really cool. I mean, it was different from the standpoint that this is, nothing that we really get to see very often. There are some companies out there that are kind of in this realm only from the standpoint that they're trying to increase or speed up the aging process. And this is not that at all. This is not that TerraPure process. This is not anything done, I believe, through any, ultrasonic waves or anything like that. There's none of that type of stuff that's meant to enhance, as far as I know. Now, they could be subject to some, ultra low frequency type of vibration, but I don't know that. That might be part of their process. However, there's nothing in it that's trying to speed up the process of any of that. So anyway, so why don't we kind of get into, before I go any further, so again, they're out of Austin, Texas. Austonian Whiskey is kind of how they came up with the name. MSRP, based on the information that he had sent over to me in the Austin area, is about $30. So, very, affordable. It's right in that range now where that's become a very affordable type of whiskey. So I'll kind of leave it at that. Let me do this. So you'll see, if you can see that. It's maybe not be coming through as well, but let me know if you can see that okay. And if it looks fairly dark to you guys, it's because it actually is. The color of this is this dark, like mahogany. I mean, it's really, really a really nice looking whiskey. It gives you every impression that this is something that's been aged for a while in probably a heavy char type of barrel, just based on that. So yeah, very, very interesting. So Mr. Sasso is in the chat. So if anybody has any questions at any time for him, fire away in the chat. He'll probably be happy to maybe answer as many questions as he possibly can. So I'm going to go through just a little bit of other information that that he had provided to me before. So this was a blend of two source bourbon distillates. So it starts out as potentially a bourbon in the manufacturing process and ultimately gets to kind of where we are now. So again, 88% corn, 10% rye, and 2% malt, malted barley. So just in the event somebody's kind of coming in late, they're seeing or hearing what the mash bill is on that. So other information I had. Let's see, what else do we have? So I guess one other thing. Again, yeah, so the aging process, that was one of the more kind of interesting or kind of compelling things to me, was that this was not something that they were trying to, again, age quickly or anything. So has anybody in the chat ever heard or had any of this or anything along those lines, or had some of the other whiskeys that we had mentioned before, just regarding, that extra aging process or anything like that? So I'm always interested to know if anybody has ever had any of this in terms of what I'll be drinking tonight. So okay, so a couple of other things here. Let's see. He has on here, says, the process differs from most other alternative aging processes in that no barrel aging is used at all. Most have some time in a barrel followed by another process. I do store the product very briefly in a used oak container just before bottling. So that's very, interesting itself. So this stuff is not spending much time in the barreling type of process. And then again, by law, it has to be aged for some period in a oak barrel or a container, basically. So to be called whiskey. So that's just a federal standard that it has to be that. So and then he's also kind of coined, everybody's very familiar with the Lincoln County process. Well, they've got, based on their county, the Travis County process. So that's going to be their methods that they go through in order to create, this whiskey. So I was, like I said before, I was kind of blown away by what all of this really was. So yeah, anyway, that's kind of where we're at with that. So what else do we have? So again, yeah, this is nothing that has to do with them trying to do any aging or any of that. So, all right, so we got Pressman, Dan Trout. Hey, Dan, Richie Z's in here. Jason, the Mash and Drum. So thanks for stopping in, guys. I appreciate it. So I want to go to the chat here real quick and see what we've got. All right, so let's see if there's anything going on in here. So, like Mr. Sasso says, they say stored in oak container, no minimum time. So that's correct. So I mean, essentially, I'm assuming it can hit those barrels for, a minute, probably less than a minute. At some point, it's stored in that container. So why don't we go ahead and again, I'll have links to their process, the distillery, whatever it may be, that links back to Austonian Whiskey, so that you guys can kind of check some of that stuff out. So, all right, so what else do we have? So Christopher Keeney, so awesome product. So I'm glad somebody in here maybe has tried some of this. I'm always interested to know whether or not anybody has ever tried or maybe will be drinking along with us tonight, so to get your kind of feedback on some of those things. So all right, so there was another couple of things in here where, all right, so yeah, you're watching from downtown Austin right now. Cool, I appreciate that. Thanks for jumping in. So let's see, over a course of a month or so, the post-processing that I do transfers it into basically what you have in a bottle. So So after that whole process that they go through, they then transfer all of that into that bottle. So yeah, very, very cool. I mean, it was a really interesting and unique process just from the get-go and kind of just going all the way through basically what all of this was. So I'll kind of encourage everybody that maybe after the stream to go kind of check them out and give it a try. I'd be real interested to know after the fact people's thoughts. I mean, I know we can all become a little bit jaded at times regarding just the process, the age. We're all nowadays always focused on that. For the most part, if it's older, it's better, and that's not always the case. So I mean, I think this is something that kind of proves that there are some alternative methods, to the standard aging process. This is way different, like I said before, than some of the other ones I've had that are simply trying to speed up the process. And again, like I said before, this is not them trying to speed up the process. This is just essentially a different process of introducing, toasted oak into these containers where it then goes through this different, process that they've created that gets us to where we are right now. So I guess with that being said, why don't we go ahead and we'll kind of get into the review part of it, and I'll give you some of my, like I do with normal reviews. We'll go through I'll show you the color again. We can do that. We'll go through the nose, the taste, and then kind of the finish part of it. So, all right. So what else do we have? So I guess in addition to this and what I'm drinking, I'm always interested to know what everybody else is drinking tonight. So as you guys can see, this is a really, really nice, deep kind of copper bronze type of color. I mean, it really, really is a nice dark color. I was really surprised when I saw it because you just don't expect anything that's not going to have age in a barrel to look this way. So I was pleasantly surprised not only by how it looked, but how it tasted and all of that. So all right, Dan, OGD 114, can't go wrong with that. And I don't know if I mentioned it before. I think I did, but this is a 90 proof bourbon or 45% ABV. So, all right, Pressman, Whistle Pig, and Oktoberfest, great combination. Can't go wrong with that. And I'm assuming Mr. Sasso, which you should be. Cheers to you. Thanks for jumping in the chat, providing some additional information. And I hope you're drinking this along with me. So, cheers to you. All right, so on the nose, the first thing I got, you get hit with this nice kind of that kind of a toasted kind of coconut. For me, I got a little bit of, definitely some more oak. The dark fruit was kind of what started to kind of come through for me, mingled really well with the oak. That vanilla character really started to kind of come down or come out and really started to, if I was nosing this, not knowing what it was, I would just guess or assume I was smelling a nice bourbon. That's really what I got. You still get a lot of those same bourbon characters. The vanilla, really strong, kind of like a burnt caramel or caramel, however you want to say it, type of note. A little bit of citrus was coming out, and then a little bit. I'll kind of shift into the palate a little bit, but for me, I started picking up with that toasted oak. Since I had some the other night, it was more of a toasted rye, but I started to get a little bit of the similarities of the toasted part of it versus just the aging it, in a barrel. So it is a unique process, and I think it really now having 2 or 3 different kinds with that toasted influence. And Dan and Jason, they can kind of vouch for this. We did a live stream the other night, and we had some of the Michter's toasted barrel rye. And I was starting to kind of, as I was drinking and smelling this, started to pick up a similar type of note from the toasted part, I believe. I was struggling the other night with that because I hadn't had anything like that recently. But now that I've had it, I started to pick up that note again. So I really, really enjoyed the nose on this once I started kind of smelling it. And then once I got into the taste, it really kind of changed. So why don't we do this? So we'll get into the taste now. So cheers, guys. Yeah, so you do get, for me, you get hit with that kind of vanilla oak right up front. I think that kind of goes into, as it gets to kind of the mid palate, you start to pick up some of those kind of like dark fruits. The vanilla kind of gets a little bit heavier. Just a really, it's just a really nice kind of well balanced whiskey. I'm amazed as to kind of really what I'm drinking, because you get, like I said before, you get so focused on the conventional way to do it that it can't be done another way and still be right or good. And I somehow I'll have to talk to him and see about getting some more of this. This stuff is one of those whiskeys I think I'd really like to always have around. I think it'd be great, even in cocktails if that's something you wanted to do with it. But for me, this like that burnt caramel, the vanilla note, it's kind of like a bit of a creme brulee type of note to it. It's really, really nice on the palate. Yeah, that toasted portion I was talking about before starts to come through a little bit now as you kind of sip on it, as a little bit of like a toasted coconut type of note to it. I don't know if that's anything that that either Christopher Keeney has gotten, because he had indicated, I believe, he had tried some of this, and then Mr. Sasso, of course, he knows his product, better than anybody. But yeah, it's really nice and sweet. There's different layers to it. Very, very kind of complex for what it was, or for what it is. I really, really like what this is. So it is. So like Dan said, very interesting. It is very interesting, and it's one of those whiskeys I'm hoping that everybody, or a lot of people will get an opportunity to to try. So yeah, so okay, so you posed, how do I think it compares in terms of sweetness to common bourbons? I would think with this, it compares equally, I believe. There's the good sweetness. It's very complex. There's different kind of layers to it as you kind of begin to drink it. And then you get to the mid and back palate, the finish. You start to essentially get all of these different waves, kind of like I was mentioning before. And the sweetness part of it, I think is great. I mean, I think it's a really nice, sweet, well balanced whiskey. And if I didn't know better, I would think I was just drinking a nice, really well kind of put together bourbon. So whatever it is that you do outside of what I kind of described before to create this, you've done a really, really nice job. So, and yeah, I mean, cheers to you. It's really, really good. So, yeah, and and again, I think the other nice part is, with this being 90 proof, it's sweet. There's a lot of, again, different layers. I think this would become a really interesting or well-balanced entry-level whiskey for somebody to kind of get into things. I don't think there's anything that's offensive or off-putting with this at all. And it would be, I mean, not that I would still love to just sip on it, if I'm in the mood for something nice and sweet and a little bit of oak, some kind of toasted oat or toasted oak. This would be really, really nice. So that's the one great thing I love about whiskey, bourbon, call it what you will, the different, processes, just the different things that I taste versus what somebody else will be tasting. And it's just, that's the interesting part of this. I can taste something different than somebody else does, and nobody's right or wrong. It's just what you taste, what you like. That's the fun part. And when I got the opportunity to kind of reach out to you and kind of coordinate getting a bottle, I was really excited to kind of try this whole process. And I have to admit, initially I was a little bit skeptical based on, the process, because we're so geared to the conventional approach to whiskey and how it's supposed to be, produced, that this kind of shakes it up a little bit. And I'll be really interesting to see, what others really think of this when this stuff really starts to get out. So I'm just going to kind of go through the chat a little bit and see what else was mentioned. So, okay, so you're setting up some distribution to see about being able to ship to other states where it's legal. So right now it's only on the shelves in the kind of the major Texas markets right now. So yeah, I really think and I hope you're able to get this out there. I'll plan on trying to divvy some of this stuff up and kind of get this out to some of the other people in the whiskey community, including some of the people probably in the chat tonight, and just kind of, if nothing else, kind of help promote the process a little bit for it. So, or promote the product a little bit. I think it's really something that everybody should give a try and just see what you think. It would really be interesting, I think, for a lot of people to try this blind or without having the preconceived notion that this is something different and is not a conventional type of bourbon or whiskey, something along those lines. So again, I really, really enjoy, this whiskey. So thanks for sending that to me. I'm happy to kind of do all of this, and thanks for jumping in tonight for that. So yeah, so like Jason says, gotta love science. It is one of those things. I would love to know. I would love to know the Travis County process. I know. I'm not asking you to tell us or anything like that, but I'd really be interested to know, what else kind of goes into the process of what you do. And I don't know if it's something that at some point you plan on, as maybe the product begins to grow, to maybe kind of let that out a little bit in terms of what it is. Again, I don't know if you plan on doing that or not, but it's really a really nice, easy sipping whiskey. So yeah, so that's a great idea. So as you mentioned, setting up a blind tasting, because I really, I've had a lot of whiskey, a lot of different types of whiskeys, and I think somebody would be really, really hard pressed to taste this and think that this was anything different than more of a standard, production type of bourbon or whiskey. So there's nothing that I've picked up in it that's gimmicky, whatsoever. So again, I give you all the credit in the world for whatever it is that you're doing and changing things up. it, whether or not this is a game changer in the overall aspect of the whiskey world, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you what, I mean, it is one of those processes so far that has, kind of, shocked me from the standpoint of really what it is that we're drinking and how this was produced. So the one thing I would say, and maybe you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but I really like the toasted oak influence that's there. And I think I would have struggled the other day to have picked that up. But again, when we were tasting some of the Michter's toasted barrel rye, that toasted part was kind of ingrained, in my mind, and I started to pick up that little bit of influence on it. So I really liked the idea of, that toasted part of it. So all right, so Christopher Keeney. So yeah, so science, LOL. So it is. I mean, I'm glad he can probably shed a little bit more light. So he's down, in the Austin area as well. And what else does he have to say? Yeah. So as far as, so he had asked, Christopher Keeney asked, was there any time taken to allow for the product to breathe? Yes, there was. So I had already opened up this bottle probably upwards of maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and tried it at that time, and it was still very good. And then tonight I poured a glass about 30-40 minutes prior to kind of starting the live stream. So I did allow it to open up. Now, here's my other question. I do have a little bit of water here. I haven't put any water in prior. Normally with a 90 proof, I wouldn't necessarily put water in it, just to not, bring the proof down any. But I guess my question to you would be, should I try this with maybe a couple drops of water just to see? And Christopher, you can kind of chime in as well, whether or not you either have it with water or ice cube or anything like that. But I guess I wanted to know your opinion as to whether or not any of the flavors kind of change or anything like that with water, or if you would do it or you wouldn't do it. So I'll kind of wait to hear what you think on that. So all right, what else is going on in the chat? Let me go. So yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, you definitely pick up that toasted, that toasted oak influence, and then it goes through that month process, that secret part of the process. I would love to know like what that is. I mean, that is very interesting. And I guess I probably should mention before, I don't know if you had mentioned in the chat or not, but there's no like artificial colors or flavoring or any of that added to this. So this isn't a flavored whiskey, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I read on the bottle, yeah, it only says colored and flavored with American oak segments, no artificial colors or flavors. So this is all the color and the flavor comes from that process, and the oak portion. So it's very, I know, I'm just a little bit kind of amazed as to really what a lot of this is. So it's really a really nice product. So all right, let me go back to the chat here for a second. So oh, okay. Yeah. So I understand the portion that has to be labeled on a bottle. So What else here? So Christopher Keeney, I've had the ability to taste Austonian in a couple different capacities, straight on the rocks and straight with modest drop of soda water. So let's do this. I'm gonna actually pour a little bit more because I don't have that much. All right, Jason, I'll get to that in a second. So I guess as far as comparing this to another whiskey, well, like I said, the one thing I picked up the other today was that toasted kind of influence. I did pick that up a little bit. As far as comparing it to something, it's for me just a sweeter type of bourbon. So it'd be something that's still very sweet, but with that oak type of influence. So I guess I'm struggling to try to compare it to a particular bourbon. All I would say is that the note for me. Let me go. Let me before I add water. Yeah, I get a little bit of this kind of like almond type of note to it as well. But that nice kind of just toasted oak flavor is kind of one of the things that I'm picking up quite a bit of with the vanilla sweetness on the back end of that. So it's a real interesting kind of like wave to the flavor profile of that. One of the things that's really interesting. So okay, what's Christopher saying? So, and I guess I should mention before. So if there is anybody that's in here who hasn't liked it or subscribed, do all that. There's a couple other guys in here who've got some great channels. Jason, the Mash and Drums. So if you guys haven't checked him out, go and do so. He's got a great YouTube channel as well. He does some really nice things. So, all right. So Christopher, I found the allowing Austonian to melt ice provides a slower bloom, whereas drops of soda water kind of catalyzes the opening of flavor quicker. So I'm not really one to add anything outside of just a standard type of water, no soda water, any of that type of stuff. Not to say that it's wrong or anything like that. By all means, you drink it however you like. But for me, you know, I'll very rarely do I add water to anything. I mean, I do enjoy like a high proof bourbon, but something that's got some different flavor profiles like this, I think, may change with a little bit of water or something. I'll be interested to kind of see what it does. So, yeah, okay, the addition is very modest. So, yeah, and maybe some of that kind of like that sparkling water influence, maybe that does something from a molecular standpoint to kind of change the whole like kind of profile of things. That very well could be. I don't have any type of soda water or anything like that with me. I've just got a standard type of like reverse osmosis water that I've got. So if I add that, that's going to be probably the closest thing I've got to like a limestone type of water. So, all right. So yeah, so I can see the carbonation, it very well could do something to this. So you've tried this before and you've kind of experienced, some different things with it. So, again, it's however you want to drink it. I mean, I'm not telling anybody anything that they don't already know. I mean, you drink this stuff however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do this. So, all right, what else do we have in the chat? So Pressman said before he's going to kind of keep an eye out for it. And I don't know what state Pressman's in, but it sounds like if he's in the Texas area that you might have a shot at getting some of this, or if you know somebody who might be able to mule some for you, that's always possible. And it's very affordable. I mean, $30, you can barely get anything for less than $30 anymore. There's not many. There are some that are still kind of ones that are on the bottom shelf that have a very low price that are still fantastic or really good to sip on. But again, $30, that's a great price point. So I guess with that being said, I'm glad to see that this isn't like $70 or $80 or something like that. Not to say that it's not worth it in this market or anything like that, but so many of these small distilleries are trying to recoup on their investment that they have to kind of hike the prices up so much on their whiskey that it makes it difficult to make that kind of purchase when you know there's other really good whiskeys out there that are maybe, let's just say, in the $50 or $60 range. To then buy something that could be maybe 2 years old, maybe a little bit younger, something like that. So you kind of struggle with pulling the trigger on something that's that expensive. So I was excited to see that this was at that $30 kind of price point. So. All right. So what is Christopher saying? Agreed. For the better benefit of the patron, drinks as you'll have it. So, yeah. I mean, I think this is just one of those. Going back to the whiskey itself, just a really nice, easy, well balanced whiskey. So, I guess we're about 40 minutes in, and I had mentioned somewhere, if anybody or you guys were paying attention to anything that I had posted, that I'd kind of indicated that I was going to kind of throw out like a secret type of word. And if anybody knows what that is, go ahead and list it. And I said for the first 3 people to put in kind of the secret or target word, that I would send them a sample of this. Then at least 3 of you can try it. We'll see if there's some more that I can send out as well. But I said if there were 3 people, or the first 3 people to mention what that kind of secret word was, that I would send them a sample of this. So I'd really be interested to get this out to a few people, just to let you guys kind of try it and see what some of this stuff is. So I don't mean to. All right, so there's Jason. So Jason's won, so he got it. So, all right, so. So yeah, it was. I didn't mean for everybody to go scrambling to get off the live stream or anything like that, but I didn't know if maybe anybody had seen before that I had put it somewhere else, and kind of put a little bit of a target word out there. So anyway, so yeah, really, I'm really impressed. I'm glad you sent me this. I might have to make some arrangements with you to somehow get another bottle or 2 of this. This stuff is really good. Something I want to have kind of around all the time. I mean, I do a lot of meetups with guys, different groups that I'm in, and would be really interested to take a bottle of this along just to let people try it, get their impressions without anybody knowing what it is. I'm assuming most people are not going to have any idea what this is. So that's the fun part for me, is that, here, try this. Yeah, and it is. It's a great conversation starter too, because I think once people try this and give their impression, whether it's good or bad, not everybody will like it. That's just the way it goes with whiskey. But I'll be interested to see what other people are thinking, of the product. Are they enjoying it? And if so, and then at that point, you kind of let them know a little bit of the history or the story behind it, the process behind it, and kind of go from there. So, and I think that will be whether you like it or not. So if you like it, you'll probably appreciate the process more. And then if for some reason you don't, you may just continue to be one of the people who are very skeptical as to, whiskey has to be done a particular way. It has to be aged in, conventional, new charred oak barrels, and that, that's fine too. I mean, not everybody likes, everything that we all enjoy. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, like I said before, a really interesting, product. And like you had mentioned before, it is a great, kind of conversation starter, starter to conversation, just to, you know, let people in on kind of what this whole deal is. So, so again, thanks for sending that to me to kind of review. So why don't I do this before I add any water? I want to go through just a little bit more of the taste on this. See if I pick anything out. It has kind of opened up a little bit more. Yeah, just that really nice caramel, vanilla, that toasted oak is there. You know, very little heat. Early on, finish, I would say probably develops. Probably on the medium side, I would say. Still leaves you with kind of that little bit of dryness kind of there, but still left with that kind of nice sweet oak flavor. Jason had asked before what this kind of compares to, and I guess the more I've thought about it and kind of drank it, it reminds me a little bit of the Elijah Craig 12 year with a little extra sweetness. So that's kind of what I'm picking up a little bit on this. I do pick up those influences. Maybe the Elijah Craig, the 12 year is a little bit spicier. This isn't as spicy. I think it was fairly low on the rye, so 10% on the rye. So there's not as much Sprite or spice on it, but there's that sweetness. There's that nice kind of sweet oak vanilla that that really kind of comes through. So the more I kind of sip on it and the finish develops a little bit more, I would say this is just a sweeter, less spicier version for me of the Elijah Craig 12 year. That's one thing that kind of comes to mind, right off the top of my head after kind of drinking it. So, all right. So does anybody have any general questions or any other anything else that they want to address to Mr. Sasso, who, of course, I'm assuming everybody knows is Austonian Whiskey that's in here. So, yeah. So, like Christopher Keeney said, so I'm glad you thought I was kind of like on par with the comparison. So I'm glad that other people are kind of sensitive. So yeah, sweeter in the sense of enjoyable, but not overbearing. Now I like the Elijah Craig 12 year. I like that spiciness. I like that little bit of extra heat that kind of comes with it. This is very close, just less spicy and not nearly the heat that the 12 would kind of give you. So that's my thought on that. So yeah, so I guess with that being said, so if I gave a comparison, and I know you may not want to rattle off comparisons, but with that being said, is there anything after you've tasted this and other whiskeys, what you might, also, kind of compare it to? I know there was before you had sent me some information that this has gone through some competitions and has kind of beat out some of the more expensive, brands and stuff out there. But I guess I'm always curious to know, like, maybe what you would kind of compare it to, or anything along those lines. So, and I the other interesting part was I saw that in competition, the this has to compete in the corn whiskey category, and I believe based on the amount of corn that's there, 88%. I think in order for it to be considered a corn whiskey, and I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for it to be corn whiskey, it has to be at least 80 or 81% corn. I believe that's what the standard is. And I don't know if the other grain or anything after that has to only be either a single grain or it can be other grains, because yours is clearly three, being the corn, rye, and malted barley. So, but anyway. All right, so Richie, all right, so maybe I'll add a couple of drops. Yeah, I don't know I don't think that the toasted amount is the same as like a very light char. I don't get that at all. I'm just not picking up, for me, where it would be like a high rye, something along those lines, where if maybe you got into the high rye mash bill for like MGP or something along those lines, it's not overly spicy for me with that part of it. So oh, now we're in trouble. So we got Brian Balthazar in here. We're gonna have to shut this thing down here pretty soon. So all right. Anyway, so toasted and different for char. Char is done with flame. Toast is done with high temperature. So that's the difference right there. That's the interesting part with the toasted versus just the standard char that's done. So it imparts essentially a completely different type of flavor. So when you get that toasted part of it, that's where that different flavor. Now that's where this part is coming out. I pick up a little bit of that little bit of like a coconutty type of note, and I think that's maybe just coming through for me on the toasted part of it. So that usually brings out a little extra kind of sweetness for me on that. So. Yeah, for sure. So, like Christopher said, that the difference in the char. I mean, it has a lot to do with the flavor of the whiskey. I mean, if it's a heavy char, a lot of times you're getting that more oak, but at the same time, the heavy char, you also start to pick up a lot more of the vanilla type of notes, things along those lines, just because that's getting deep into the wood. You're getting more of that alligatoring that's done. So as the whiskey kind of penetrates and then comes back out of the barrel, it's picking up all of those influences. So it's picking up that extra oak, a lot more of the vanilla caramel characters on the heavier char. So obviously for the lighter chars, maybe the twos, things along those lines, you're not going to get anything that's nearly as bold, from your whiskey. So for me, I like a heavier char just because I like those influences that are there. I appreciate what they're doing to create that flavor profile. So, but at the same time, this product in itself being that this is more of the toasted part of it, and then they go through that different process, that Travis County process that Mr. Sasso was referring to before. So just different. That's the one kind of interesting, other interesting parts to the whole like kind of whiskey, process are the different chars, the aging, where they're done in rick houses, things along those lines. So, that's probably completely different than what we're even talking about, with this product. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of that, even though he had mentioned before, what was that? Actually tried charring some of the oak. It made the whiskey overwhelmingly smoky. So I can see that for sure. I guess if you're going to try to char something and introduce that into, the aging process, how that can really give that kind of like bitter char type of note to it. So, I can definitely see that versus the toasting part of it, where I think you'd mentioned before, where you're hitting that with high heat and getting again essentially the toasted factor, and that gives you a different kind of flavor profile, which is different. It's kind of a really cool type of note that it gives to the whiskey. So kudos to you in kind of figuring out the whole mash bill, the process, how you want how you want to introduce the different types of wood, whether charred or toasted, things along those lines. So kudos to you for figuring it out. So one thing I didn't ask before was, this is, I believe, the newest batch. How long has the product, I guess, been on the market, and how many batches have kind of been released to date? Like, are we 2, 3, 4, 5 batches in regarding the process? So again, I'm going to go back to only one person, I believe, has indicated or mentioned kind of the special word that I had put somewhere that will get you a free sample of this whiskey. So if you know what that word is, go ahead and put that in the chat. And one is already spoken for, and there's still two available. So if anybody else wants to throw in the special word, I'll send you a nice sample of this. So yeah, so that was one other thing that I wanted to mention before, was that he was all right, 2 down. All right. What else did we have? So yeah, I would be interested to know. So on the market just over a year. So 4 different batches. Okay. So not very different. So yeah, so I like the whatever you're doing with this now, without tasting the other batches. I really like what you've done with this. The color, the appearance is fantastic of it. The taste, the flavor profile, for me, I like it. I do like a sweeter bourbon. At times, you're just in the mood for either something sweeter or a combination of sweet and spicy, things like that. But this is a really nice, easy sit down, sip on, type of whiskey. So yeah, so I guess, like Jason had mentioned before, he was asking, are there any other experiments on the horizon, or are you just kind of focusing on this product right now? Yeah, most new ideas don't work, to be honest. All right. Yeah, so I suppose that's probably one of the tricky things, when you're getting into, you know, the trial and error part of this, is that can be very expensive, when you're trying to develop a product and then try new things, and then if it doesn't work, you've kind of wasted a lot of time and mainly money trying to do all of this, because I can't imagine it's very inexpensive to produce any of this stuff. So I think it becomes kind of a tried and true method, that if you develop something that's different and still high quality, that you continue to maybe tweak that if there can be any improvements or anything like that to that product. But I would say that you've done a really nice job with this, from the standpoint of just producing what it is that you've produced and why. So yeah, really nice job with that. So all right, so there's still one more sample to be given. So if there's anybody else out there who wants to throw out that special word, then you can have the third sample. So far 2 of them have been spoken for, and I'll get that third one out to somebody at all. So yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, thanks for sending this to me. We'll need to. All right, so there's Christopher. All right, so with the 3 gone now, so what I'll probably have you guys do is just send to me. Well, 2 of you, I already have your information. Christopher, if you want, why don't you shoot me an email, and I'll get your information regarding getting the sample and stuff off to you. You can send the email to mybourbonjourney01@gmail.com. So go ahead and shoot me an email there, and I'll work on getting the sample off to you. So, Jo, how's it going? Thanks for jumping in. So you're just about an hour late. That's okay though. Better late than never, right? So yeah, I don't know. So the party source and this might be a kind of an interesting little mix. So Jo, he's runs basically the party source over there in Kentucky, and I don't know if you've had or ever heard of this product, but they're working on trying to expand their marketplace or their market share, and get this product out. So you can go back through and watch the replay if you want, and very, very interesting product and quality. It's a quality product. So, all right. So does anybody else have anything? Let me go back through the chat here for a minute. So I think I've kind of done. Let's do this before I kind of get off. I had mentioned before that I wanted to add just a couple drops of water. I'm literally going to add 1, 2, 3. So I've got just the standard little kind of dropper. So I put 3 drops of water in there, and we'll see if this does anything. Well, for me right away, it's bringing out a little bit more of the oakiness kind of to it. Still a little bit of heat kind of on the nose. Brought out a little bit of that. I'm starting to pick up a little bit more of a kind of a like a citrusy type of note to that. Huh, interesting. Huh, yeah, very well. Let's see what it does with the taste. Yeah, I guess my first thought is that it's maybe bringing out a little bit of that extra sweet kind of caramel note to it. Yeah, really, it's really nice. I mean, it's done, not a lot to it. I don't think it's changed a lot. Hey, Daniel. I don't think it's changed a ton. It's really kind of holding up. Now, again, I've only added, 3 drops of water, so, and it hasn't really, had a chance to kind of open up that much. But yeah, really, just a really nice, well-balanced whiskey that you have. So I would encourage you to keep doing whatever it is you're doing. Hopefully you'll get the product out there to more people. Let them try this. I think the best part of this would be being able to set up somewhere in a liquor store and letting people try this without having any idea, what this is. That would be the real interesting part for me, is that without anybody having any idea that there's some different processes to this. That'd be the real cool thing, is watching people taste this and get a really, kind of cool reaction to, what people's thoughts were. So, Daniel, get yourself a drink ASAP. I don't know if you're still out of town or anything, but you've got enough quality scotches that you should be able to find something. I know that. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, I guess with all of that being said, really really nice product. I think you've done a fantastic job with figuring out or establishing your process for producing this. I guess one other thing that I wanted to ask was in your marketplace, what the reaction has been, to this product. Do you go out and market this anywhere that is allowing for people to try it and then kind of get their impressions as to how they're enjoying it, what they're comparing it to, things along those lines? I'm always that's kind of the one thing that's set in my mind now is just the fact of doing this from like a blind standpoint in not knowing anything about this whatsoever. So I mean, I would never have ever guessed this was an alternative type of aging. I'll call it aging process, or just an alternative process in general. But yeah, great job that you guys have done. So yeah. All right, so let me go back to the chat. So yeah, that's well, like you'd mentioned. So that's the best way. I mean, I think if you lay out for somebody what this whole process is first, and then have them try it, they're either going to get that preconceived notion that they already don't like this just because it's not a conventional type of process in terms of how it's produced. But being able to give this to somebody and say, here, try Austonian whiskey. You give me your honest opinion. Let me know your thoughts. And them have no idea of what it is or any of that. My guess would be there's going to be a lot of people that you're going to trick into, I don't want to say trick, but there's a lot of people I think that you're going to get the impression or a response that it's a really nice product. So, I really hope you're able to get, this out to other people to try. So. Yeah, so I believe that. I mean, I think people, within the industry who are doing things a very conventional, old school type of way, you'll probably never convince some or most of those people that what you're doing is either okay, the right way, not a gimmick. That's probably where you'll get some pushback from regarding that. And I can see that because there's some people you'll literally never convince that if you don't put, whiskey or white dog, into a new charred oak barrel, stick it in a rick house and let that thing age for however long it is, you're not going to convince some people that that's not the right way to do it. And, whether it is or isn't, I don't know. So, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think with what I've had here, I would have no problem just sipping on this, several times. It's good enough for me to, want to continue to drink more. So, yeah, Dan, I'll do that. I'll send you some too, but I'll send a sample to Richie. So Richie, just send me an email or send me a direct message on Instagram, and I'll I'll get a sample of it off to you. So Dan, I'll send you one as well. So I'm clearly going to be getting rid of some of this. So somehow I'm going to have to negotiate getting another bottle for my own bar. So we can probably work out those details, I'm guessing. So anyway, so yeah, I'm glad. Thanks for everybody for taking your time. We're already about an hour and 10 minutes or so in, but I'm just kind of super excited. I didn't know if we'd go nearly this long, but I was excited to kind of share this this product with everybody and kind of introduce it to you guys to understand or have an idea that there's something different out there regarding a process to a particular whiskey. So it's one of those very interesting things, and this is why I wanted to do it this way rather than just trying to do a conventional review, because I don't think that would have ever have come through in me just giving the nose and the taste, all of that. So this I wanted to be able to kind of share and just kind of talk out loud, get Mr. Sasso in here, who again, thank you very much for taking the time to kind of sit down and be in this with me. I greatly appreciate it. And kind of just help, get the word out there more, help people to understand, there's different processes to, creating, good whiskey. The one thing, like I said before, is I'm glad that this is not a process that's introduced to try to speed up the aging process. I've had that, and I've not been convinced so far that through different methods that you can take something that's 6 months old and try to sell it as though it was 4 to 6 years. I've had that, and I wasn't necessarily sold on that process. So I know there's a few companies out there that are trying some of that, but I still don't think, for the most part, there's any rushing the bourbon or whiskey process. With that being said, this is something that's alternatively different. It's not trying to be that. It's just a different product. It's a different type of whiskey. And I think that the more people, try this, I think they'll end up being fairly impressed by what this is. So, so again, kudos to you for thinking of this. So, I guess with some of this, with your process that you kind of created, do you have a background as like, more of a science type of background, that you were able to kind of create the Travis County process, or was this just something that, kind of came to mind one day to try maybe some different, methods for aging a whiskey? So. Christopher, send yours to Dan. I was already gonna send one, Christopher. I'll still send you. I'll still send you one as well. So I know you've probably had it. So I don't know if there's anybody else in here who hasn't. I'd try to send one to Daniel, but I don't know how things will go across the border or not. I don't know if you've had any issues with any of that or not. But we can. I talked to enough of you guys that we can make some arrangements and all of that. So, but Christopher, Dan, Jason, Richie, I'll get some samples and stuff off to you guys of this. I'll be real interested to see your thoughts. So here would be kind of an interesting proposal for, let's say, Jason, Dan, Richie, Christopher. would you guys be opposed to, once you get the samples, all jumping on and maybe just doing another kind of like either short or just kind of a live stream just to kind of see your thoughts. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud if that would be something that you'd want to do, just to kind of do something where you're experiencing something that's a little bit different, unconventional, and just kind of seeing what your thoughts were. So all right, so 2 down. So now we just need to hear from Richie or Christopher. All right, Christopher, you're on board. Richie, what do you think about hopping on at some point and doing a little bit of a live stream with us and letting us know your thoughts on this whiskey once you get it and try it? We'll all kind of hop on to maybe Jason's channel or someone's channel and just kind of do a live stream and see what what we all think about it. So that would be an interesting thing to do, I think. All right, so yeah, that'd be fine if you want to. I don't right now. I've got to work on my my Patreon stuff so I can get some more support out there, so I can afford some electronic stuff, that I can get a new computer because mine's garbage, and I need to be able to live stream and get on that. All I've got is my work computer, but there's so much security behind it that it won't let me do any of that. So I end up doing all the live streams from my phone. So yeah. So Richie, you're oh yeah, okay. Dan said he uses his phone, so that's fine. So Donner Pass, thanks for hopping in. So we're I don't know. You can check back on the replay, but this was a fun one. I was really glad to be able to do this and kind of share this with everybody. So does anybody else have anything for me or Mr. Sasso that he can maybe answer for you? And again, like I said before, I'm going to put a link to Austonian Whiskey in the description below. So if you guys want to go and check that out, so we can do that. So all right, so what do we have here? All right, so Dan's asking. I know Dan's in the Maryland area, so or Jersey. He gets there, so yeah. So I don't know if Mr. Sasso wants to join. He and I can stay in contact, and once we put something together to kind of do that, 4 or 5 person live stream, if he wants to jump in on the live stream, he's more than welcome. I mean, I'm it's just interesting to me from the standpoint that I think it'll be just a cool product to get out there to allow people to try something that's a bit different. It's not a flavored whiskey. This isn't vanilla or caramel flavored whiskey or any of that. So this is just something that's a good quality alternative product. I mean, that's all I can say, and that they've done a good job. So whatever that process is that you guys are doing, keep doing your thing. So yeah, that'll be fun. So if you, we'll put something. I'll talk to the guys and we'll get something out. So if anyone's watching this on the live stream later on down the road, if you've gotten this far in the live stream, go check out the Mash and Drum whiskey channel. So it's the Mash and Drum. We're gonna do a live event at some point where we're all introduced to the Austonian whiskey and get everybody's kind of thoughts on where they're at with it. Do they like it? All of those types of things. I think it'll be really interesting to get somebody other than my perspective, a bunch of other people who enjoy whiskey and kind of get their thoughts. So again, at this point, later on down the road, if you're watching this on the replay, you can go over to the Mash and Drum. He'll probably have at some point a link to the live show that we do for the Austonian Whiskey. So, yeah. So Richie, I mean, you don't need much. I mean, I mean, as long as you've got basically any type of smartphone, you can do you can do the live streaming. It's just through the Google Hangout. Dan got it set up the other night, so when we did our live stream, I think he might have done it on his computer, maybe his phone. I think he was doing it on his phone as well. So it was the same thing, and I do all the live streaming and stuff off my phone as well. So that's no problem at all. So yeah, so that's what I thought. So all right, so we're at an hour and 20 minutes. Maybe just to kind of make this even, why don't we, if you guys are okay, and if Mr. Sasso wants, we'll go maybe another 10 minutes. If there's anything else you want to share with everybody in the chat, I would say go ahead and put that in there from the replay standpoint, so that everybody will be able to, go and check this out, get some additional information on your product. And like I said before, I'll put some links in the description below at some point to link people back to your to the Austonian whiskey. So, like you said before, I don't think anybody can order this directly from you. Just from a shipping standpoint, I don't know if you're not able to sell or distribute or ship outside of the state of Texas or not. I don't know what the laws are with that part of it. But I'm guessing right now the only way people would be able to get the whiskey would be to either be in the Austin area or the major markets within Texas that they might be able to pick up the whiskey, or if anybody is going to be going to the Houston area, they can always maybe pick some up and make some arrangements to get some bottles to other people if anybody's willing to do that. So, all right. So Dan, thanks for asking. So, future reviews I've got coming up. Basically 4 of them I've got kind of lined up right now. One other one is going to be the Joseph Magnus cigar blend. That was sent to me actually by Nancy Fraley, who, if people have any idea, she's basically one of the her nickname is the Nose, so she has essentially one of the greatest nose and palates that people have identified. So she does a lot of the master blending for a lot of different companies, Magnus, J. Henry. I'm forgetting a couple of the other ones off the top of my head right now, but she does a lot of the master blending for a lot of these companies. Magnus maybe being the largest and maybe most well-known one. So I've got Magnus coming. I've got a Smooth Ambler, just their American style whiskey. That's going to be coming before too much longer. Journeyman Distillery, which is out of, I believe Holland, Michigan. It's Michigan, I know. And then the other one I've got is not Journeyman, Coppercraft Distillery, out of Michigan as well. So those are maybe 2 kind of smaller ones, and then 2 of the bigger boys. The Magnus, the cigar blend will be really really interesting. I've had that in the past, and it's a fantastic pour. So it really is. It's finished in I believe 3 different type of casks, and well, you guys will have to check back later to see what I've got. So yeah, so Jason, I'm excited to get some of this to you so that you can try it. So, all right, and what Mr. Sasso put in here, I'm not allowed to sell it direct to anyone. Has to go through distribution. Unfortunately, the stores here can't ship. But I'll get to try it in a retail in another state, set that can ship it. Yeah, that's the frustrating part, I think, from us as consumers the inability sometimes to get some of the smaller or craft whiskeys that are out there. So, it's frustrating because you want to be able to get this out to other people, and you're probably limited through distributors and laws and things like that. So, outside of the big boys who have plenty of money backing them and distributors that they can run things through, there's no problems for them to get their product out. But it's a bit different for some of the smaller distilleries and distributors. So. All right, so what's Richie say? How about old Portrero whiskey from Anchor Steam, San Francisco? Richie, I've never heard of it, and I'm assuming it's a craft type of whiskey. Nothing I've heard of. I have no idea about any of it, so that's new to me. What else do I have? One other thing I've got is another local product to Wisconsin. It's what is that they sent me? 45th Parallel Distillery. They sent me something, so I'll be doing a review of theirs. So they've got a standard whiskey. They've got a wheat whiskey, or excuse me, they got a bourbon, wheat whiskey, and a rye whiskey. So I'll be doing that probably in the near future, maybe about fifth in line right now. So a couple other things I've got as well. So there's no shortage of reviews coming. So, and this was one of the ones I've kind of bumped ahead of some of the others, just because I wanted to get that out there. So, and allow people to maybe kind of just see what this was and what it was all about. So, so I guess if that's it, we're already almost an hour and 27 minutes in. I think we can probably go ahead and wrap this up. So I have to say again to Mr. Sasso, thanks for not only sending the bottle, but taking your time to be on here and chat with all of us, produce or provide us with some great information. And I think we all wish you the best with this. So, and I'll work on getting the samples out to you guys. So if there is anybody who I don't already kind of communicate with, shoot me an email at mybourbonjourney01@gmail.com, and I will I'll get a sample of that off to you guys. So I guess with that being so again, thanks for everybody for joining and being on so long. I didn't necessarily mean to ramble on at all for almost an hour and a half, but I'm glad I was able to do this. So with that being said, or like I always try to say, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers, guys. Have a great night.